Today's 5.1, simple and compound interest. So interest is the fee paid for using someone else's money. The year or less is if you're doing for simple interest. For more than a year, then it is compound interest. So this particular part is for simple interest. There will be some problems on MyMathLab where they have it for more than a year, but they say the word simple interest. So use the simple interest formulas for those. On the test, if it's more than a year, you're going to use your compound interest formulas. If it's less than a year, you're going to use your simple interest formulas. So these are our formulas here. And actually, the interest one is I equals PVRT. PV for present value. They changed it from principal to present value just to make it for an easier read. I'm not sure if that first one is on the formula sheet or not. I'll write it over here. Okay. R stands for your rate, which is your percent. T stands for your time, which is your years. And so anyhow, look on the formula sheet and see if I equals PVRT is there. And if it is, then you don't have to memorize it. Future value, that means the amount down the road, okay, or at the end of the time period. So FV stands for future value. Looking here, PV is present value, just like before. R is still your rate, T is still your time. So R and T will be the same as we go through all these formulas in chapter 5. Okay, same thing with FV, PV, all these letters will be similar in each of the cases. Present value, again, that is PV. Okay, is the amount at the start. Okay, so that's the amount now, present value. And again, all our letters are representing the same. It's just a modified version of the future value. There's another way of writing this. You can write this as the future value times 1 plus RT to the negative 1. If you didn't want to have to do that division with the plus sign at the bottom. Okay. All right, so let me show you how the simple interest formulas work. It says an accountant for a corporation forgot to pay the firm's income tax of $725,673.88 on time. The government charged a penalty of 8.1% interest for the 44 days the money was late. Find the total amount, tax, and penalty that was paid. Assume 365 days in a year. So there's two different ways to do this. We're going to go ahead and figure out how much the tax was first. Well, that's the interest, okay? So that's going to be our I equals PV times RT. So plugging in our information, our present value, that's the amount now. Well, that's the income tax amount. So that's the $725,673.88 times our rate. And keep in mind, your rate is your percent. So it's 8.1%. But when we put it in, we're going to put it in as 0.081. Change it to a decimal. So move that decimal 2 places to the left. And then times our time has to be in years. So that's going back up here. Time has to be in years. So they gave us 44 days. So we would say 44 days over 365 days because we're using 365 days for the year. All right. Then it's a matter of just multiply that all out and you can plug that all in at your calculator at one time. So that gives us $7,085 .758,105. I'm keeping this whole entire decimal because I'm not done with the problem. But when I go to put my answers down, then I'll go put them down in dollars and cents. Okay, don't tell me that this is your change. All right, so now there's another way of calculating future value, and that is doing your present value plus your interest. This formula is not on the formula sheet if you go this route. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to take my present value, the $725,673 $7,000.88, and I'm going to add it to my interest amount, the 7,085.758105. And so when we add these, we end up with $132,759.64. Okay. So this is the total amount that they paid. This is actually the penalty. Wait a second. Something's not computing right. Okay, sorry about that. I was misreading a number. That's $732,759.64. So this is the total amount that they paid for tax and penalty. Okay. The tax amount that was there was actually just the $7,085.76. That's where we'll need to round there. All right. And so so this is one way of working this problem if you want to know the tax first and then the penalty. Again, be careful on rounding your numbers. That's going to be really important in chapter 5. So don't round them until the very end of the problem. Even though it might look obvious, don't round it to the very end. Another way we could have worked this problem, we could have just gone ahead and found the tax and penalty all as one. We could have found this amount first. And so that would have been using our future value equals our present value times 1 plus RT. Okay. And so in that case, after we had found that, then we would have taken our interest amount would have been our future value minus our present value. And again, this formula is not on the formula sheet. The I equals future value minus present value. That's not on the formula sheet. So these two, which is a modification of this one, okay, these two formulas here are not on the formula sheet. If you want to go that route, okay, it's completely your choice. If I just asked for the tax, then you just use the I equals PRT and you get your answer. All right, so I'm going to show you how to use the present value formula, which is a modification of the future value formula from up above. So it says find the present value of the given future amount. So they're actually just telling you what each of these is. The 16,498 is the future value. And then, of course, our days is going to be our time. And then our rate is our percent. So we want to find the present value. So present value equals future value divided by 1 plus RT. And I'm going to show you this in this form, just kind of give you a heads up about what to be careful on your calculator. All right, so plugging in our values, we're going to have the 16,498 divided by 1 plus 0.07 times our T, which is going to be 160 over 365. And again, you'll know it's a simple interest problem because it'll be less than a year, okay? If it says simple interest, don't worry about the time on MyMathLab. If it says simple interest, then you do simple interest. All right, so if you're using this formula, okay, I'm going to be wanting you to find check figures, okay? And the check figures are going to come from the more complicated stuff, okay, which in our case would be the denominator. So we would go ahead and find that check figure, 16,498, by typing in the 1 plus 0.07 times 160 divided by 365. You're going to need to show me work on these because I can't see what's plugging into your calculator. So don't type it all in at once. Be sure to show the check figure. So like I said, for this one, the check figure is at the bottom. If you were using the future value equals the present value times 1 plus RT, then your check figure would be whatever's in your parentheses. Okay. All right. And so here, if we plug that into our calculator, we're going to end up with 1.030684 932. And again, use the whole entire decimal, don't chop it off. Okay. Then you can go ahead and do that division and you end up with $16,006.83. And because it's money, we round off to 2 decimal places. If it wasn't money, then you do 4 decimal places. Okay. So make sure that you show me these check figures as you go through and even on the test, because that's what gets you partial credit. All right. And again, the future value works the same exact way. If I was asked for the future value, then I'd be plugging it in and working it out there. All right, compound interest. This is what banks like to do, credit cards like to do. They like to charge compound interest. That's interest charged on the interest as well as any principal that you still have. Okay, so they're double whammying you kind of. All right, this is longer than a year. So, like I said, on the test, I follow these rules. So, if it's longer than a year, then you're going to use the compound interest formulas, which are right here. If it's less than a year, then a year or less, then you're going to use your simple interest. So we need to know about compounding periods because N is a new letter for us. N is representing the compounding periods. So we've got a couple of different compounding periods here. We have annually, which occurs 1 time a year, semi-annually, which occurs twice a year, quarterly, which is 4 times a year, monthly, which is 12 times a year, daily, which is 365 times a year, and then continuous compound, you use this formula here. If you have more periods, then you get charged more interest. Credit cards, just FYI, they say they charge you a monthly interest, but actually it's a daily interest because if you look at your credit card bills, it will be something one day and then the next day it'll be a little bit more because they're charging you interest because you didn't pay it that day. Like car notes are monthly. You pay the interest monthly. Okay. So there house notes monthly. There's a lot where you do monthly and daily because they want to try and get as much interest out of you. All right, so let's talk about these formulas and see what we can do. The following money market account rates were available from a particular bank. The compound amount and the interest earned. Oh, find the compound amount and the interest earned. If we have 14,000 at 0.0, trying to keep those formulas up there, 0.98% compounded monthly for 3 years. So if it says the word compounded, then you're into your compounded formulas. But you got to be careful with that because we're going to have a lot of compounds with 2 and 5.3. Okay. So if it's asking for the compound amount, what they want you to find the future value. Okay. And the interest earned, which we'll get to that in just a second. All right. So I'm going to use my future value equals my present value times 1 plus R over N raised to the NT. Okay. So now that I've got my formula, I'll go ahead and plug in my amount. Since we want to find the future value, that tells us that the 14,000 is our present value. So I'm going to have my future value is equal to 14,000 times 1 plus our rate is our percent. So that's going to be 0.0098 divided by N, which is our number of compounds. Because we're compounding monthly, that's 12. So we're going to divide by 12 and we're going to raise this to the 12 times 3 because we're doing it for 3 years. Now, when you're doing compound, first thing I would do is get that exponent taken care of. Okay. Your check figure, like I told you before, is going to be the parentheses with the exponent. Okay. So it's all of this information. So that's going to give us 14,000 times 1.029824 0.09. Okay, so show me your check figure. All right. And so when we take our 14,000 times our check figure, then we're going to end up with $14,417.54. Okay. I need to see the check figure just so that you don't accidentally make a mistake. All right. Now, to get the interest, what we'll do is we'll do our future value minus our present value. So we're taking our $14,417.54 and we're going to subtract off the 14,000 that was the present value. Okay. And so when we do, that's going to give us $417.54 for our interest amount. So we got two amounts here. One is our future value and one is our interest amount. Okay. And that's how the future value formula goes. This is also along the similar lines of the simple interest one. It's just you don't have the N on it. All right, find the interest rate for a $4,000 deposit accumulating $4,898 compounded annually for 5 years. Okay. All right, so 4,000 deposited, that's deposited right now. So this is telling us that this is our present value. The $4,898 is your future value. If you always question which one is which, the future value is always more than the present value. Okay. We're compounding annually, so that's going to be 1. Again, the word compound is there, so that throws me into my compound formulas for 5 years. Now, you can use, because they gave you present value and future value, you can use either formula. Future value equals present value times 1 plus R over N raised to the NT, or you could use the present value equals the future value times 1 plus R over N raised to the negative NT. It does not matter which one you use. You will get the same answer either way. Personal preference. I like to use the one that has a positive exponent. So I'm actually going to use this one right here. Now, the other good news about this is that these questions, they give you compounded annually. So you don't have to worry about the denominator being a different number like a 2 or a 5 or any of those. All right, so we're going to use that future value equals present value. We're not going to use this one because I don't want to deal with the negative exponent. So here, I'm going to plug in my numbers. So I've got $4,898 equals 4,000 times 1 plus, we don't know what the rate is, divided by 1, raised to the 1 times 5. Okay, and again, I'm going to get rid of that and just say it's 5. And you don't have to show me 1 times 5 or 3 times 12, what I had up above. You can just go ahead and put your exponent down. All right, so we need to solve this for R. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide off that 4,000. So I have 4,898 divided by 4,000 equals 1 plus R to the 5th power. Okay. Now we're going to take the root of both sides. This is kind of similar to what we did in chapter 4. When we were dealing with exponents. So we need to take the 5th root, but when I bring it over, I'm going to bring it over as 1 over 5. So I got 4,898 divided by 4,000. And don't plug anything into your calculator yet. To the 1/5 power equals 1 plus R. And then finally, I need to subtract the 1. So I'll have 4,898 divided by 4,000 raised to the 1/5 power minus 1 equals R. Now you can go get your check figure. Again, it's your parentheses and your exponent. So that's going to give us a check figure of 1.04 1338 minus 1 is equal to R. And so this minus 1 is actually just, this is always going to be 1 point something. So it's always going to take that 1 off. So we're going to have 0.041338 is equal to our R. And when we write our rates, we write them as percent. So we got to move our decimal back 2 places to the right. So it'd be 4.1338%. And that's 4 decimal places because it is a percent. It's not a dollar amount. Dollar amount's 2 decimal places. Everything else is 4 decimal places. So make sure that you write your rates as a percent at the very end, anytime you're asked for a rate. Okay, so there's one more formula that goes in this chapter, which is the effective rate, the annual percentage yield. This here, okay, you may have seen APY before. These, they state this information on credit cards that it's about this much percent, 26%, 28%, whatever it is now. And for a credit card. And so anyhow, that's like I told you before, they actually charge you daily on your interest. So that's why it's good if you do have credit cards to pay them off, as quick as you can so that you don't get charged that daily interest. All right. So here, R sub E, that's effective rate. So if you see that subscript of E, that's not the E that we dealt with before. This is just telling you it's an effective rate. And notice that we're dealing with our rate divided by our N, number of compounds, and we're just raised to the N power. So in this case, there is no time period. You don't have to worry about, how long this goes for. This is just an yearly guesstimate of what it could be. All right, so it could be called effective rate or it could be called nominal rate, either one. So we're going to use R sub E equals 1 plus. For this problem, we want 2% compounded quarterly, so that's four times. So 1 plus 0.02 divided by 4 raised to the 4th power minus 1. And again, there's that minus 1 again. That's just going to take off the 1 that we have before. All right, so we're going to go get our check figure, which my check figure is not complete. So I want to make sure I get the complete check figure. 4th. Okay, so I have 1.020150,501 and then minus 1. So again, check figure is parentheses along with the exponent. You can do more work if you want to, just do what's in the parentheses and then raise it to the exponent if you want to show me that, but this is the minimum, okay? So again, that 1 at the back is going to take off the 1 at the front, so that's going to leave us with 0.02, 015, 0501. So this is a rate, just like the last problem that we had. So we need to write it as a percent. So we'll have 2.0151%, 4 decimal places. Okay. And that's how you find effective rate. It's not too bad. Good news is you don't have to worry about a time on it. And so you just plug in your information, get your check figure, and then work it out. And that's it for 5.1. Let me know if you have any questions. Don't hesitate to email me or send me a message through my math lab and or stop by my office hours. Any of those. Hope you have a great day.